Hello there, my dear church boys, and welcome back to St. Robert's Daygame podcast. And in this podcast episode, we are going to talk about different things for guys who can travel for more than a month. If you are maybe a digital nomad, or you're thinking about starting to become a digital nomad, and you're looking for a place to go to for a few months. We're not talking a month, we're talking 2-3 months. We're going to be looking at different places in Asia and also talking about places in Latin America. If you're new to my podcast, then I am St. Robert, and for the last 4 years I've been coaching, daygame, and dating to guys from literally all over the world, from Australia to New York, all the places in Europe to Latin America, Asia, etc. And here on this podcast, we usually go into technical, nitty-gritty details of daygame and dating, but sometimes we touch other topics like this time we're talking about traveling. And if you are interested in seeing my kind of travel adventures and me daygaming in places off the beaten path, then you can check out my vlogging series, Dating Off the Beaten Path, on the YouTube channel. If after listening to this podcast episode you have any questions to me or Mr. Noodles, the guest of this podcast, you can ask them in our Daygame Church Telegram group chat, where we have almost 400 guys from all over the world. If you want to join the chat, become part of our community, then link to access the chat is in the description of this podcast episode. If you decide after listening to this podcast maybe to go to Argentina, which is where I'm going to be, and you want to learn daygame there, then I still have 2 coaching spots available in Argentina at the end of this year. You can find out all the details by clicking the link in the description, filling the form there, mentioning in the form that you're interested in Argentina, and I'll get back to you with all the details, the prices, the cities, dates, etc. So here we are with Mr. Noodles. Mr. Noodles has been on the podcast before. He was on the podcast when we were talking about dating in Asia, because you have spent a lot of time there.
Yeah, I started going to Asia maybe like 2017. I started going to Thailand. But even before that, I've been spending time in Bali in Indonesia. And I just kind of traveled around there, mostly during European winters, because I wanted to hide away from the cold and rain.
As many of us. So how long have you been doing this nomadic traveling lifestyle?
Probably I just kind of eased into it, starting maybe like almost a decade ago, maybe like 7-8 years. I was based in Poland for a few years, and the winters here were just kind of dark and gloomy, and I just started going away to kind of warmer destinations. And I think I started with New Zealand, actually, and spent a couple of weeks there. And then I was just kind of thinking, why don't I do it more often? And with time, I was able to work more and more remotely. So I started staying longer and longer in different places. I think I've read for the Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week. And there were some tools there that I kind of utilized. I don't necessarily subscribe to Living Your Life by that book, but there were some tools that were useful and that kind of inspired me to spend more and more time. And, with time, I would go away for as long as 6 months, being, South America or Asia or somewhere else.
Yeah, you've done this way longer than I have, because I've been living this nomadic lifestyle a bit more than 3 years now. And so today we're going to be talking about different cities where we have been recently. This is the important part or the important rule. We're only talking about cities where we have been recently, or at least I want to mention Brazil. I have never been to Brazil, but I've spoken to a bunch of people who went to Brazil last winter. So I don't have a lot of input about it, but I think I have a kind of good enough grip or grasp about what's happening there now compared to what was happening there before. I think that's one thing that people are missing when they're thinking about their digital nomad destinations or travel destinations, is there are 2 different worlds. World before COVID and world after COVID, and traveling has changed a lot. We're going to talk later about Medellin, Colombia, which was a great place before COVID, and I went there now, and I was ready to leave very, very soon after leaving. So you're a resident in Thailand.
Yes.
You are a resident of Chile.
Correct.
You're applying for a passport of Chilean passport,
That's
which
right.
is, by the way, guys, a fairly interesting thing and fairly easy to do, from what I understand. I was actually reading up about it yesterday or day before yesterday. Are you a resident somewhere else, like legally?
Panama. Yeah, so collecting my residencies and passports.
Collecting residencies. So let's maybe start with the most popular destinations. The most popular, I think, would be Thailand,
Yeah.
Bali, and Colombia. I think those are the most. Let's maybe throw in Mexico as well.
Okay.
Maybe so. Let's start with Thailand. What do you think? If you're talking about a place that is, we're looking at how livable the city is. So, is there shit to do? Are there restaurants? Are there bars? Are there things to do like parks or maybe whatever people like? And some people like art, some people like music, some people like something else. We're looking at that. So, how livable the city? We're looking at cost of living, and we're looking for Daygame, of course. So, how do you rate Thailand on these aspects?
So Thailand. Let's start with Bangkok because there's many kind of destinations there. But let's start with Bangkok, which is worth stopping wherever you're going in Thailand. It's an easy city to go to. You know, you can get by with English. Maybe they won't speak perfect English, but you'll get by. Especially in the city center, it's it's safe. The public communication is great. Price level is, it's as cheap or as expensive as you want it to be. But if you want to get by on less, I'd say, it's comparable to Central Eastern Europe or less even, if you're smart about, where you're staying and how you're spending your money. It's easy.
Let's put it in numbers. Let's say if you're saying you could compare it to Central Eastern Europe, are we talking if you're getting a place for yourself, you're getting like an apartment for yourself for 3 months, probably Airbnb?
Yeah, you could.
You're getting an Airbnb for 3 months.
Yeah.
You are not going out to fancy restaurants. You're going out, sort of like you're going out to regular places, not to the fancy Michelin star restaurants.
Yeah.
But you're cooking some of the food. You're eating out some of the times, and you're going on some dates, spending some money on some bars, and kind of doing shit. What's like that? Can you do that on like $2K a month US?
I think it's doable. Yeah, and just one thing to keep in mind, like when you say you're going out for drinks, you can go out for drinks, or it's easy to go to a bar that has like New York prices in it, right? So it's really easy to blow through that 2K if you're not careful, but you'd be able to do it on 2K a month, I think, just kind of maybe get an apartment that's not right in the middle of things, but a little bit on the side, which is gonna be close enough and just as cool, if not cooler. You don't have to cook really. I find in places like Asia, it's actually cheaper to eat out than to
The
cook.
thing is, I try to eat as healthy as possible very often. Well, not as healthy as possible, but I try to eat healthy, and it's way easier for me to do that if I'm cooking myself. So then wherever I go, I cook the same stuff every day, and it's boring for other people, but for me, it's easier to just stay in good shape. Okay, you said if you're staying not in the center of everything, so this is a very important question when we're talking about going to those kind of places like Latin America and Asia.
Yeah.
So in Bangkok, let's say you are staying in a neighborhood that's not very central, you're taking some sort of transportation to get to the city center. Is it safe to do that?
Yeah, it's very safe. It's one of the safest places I've been. Never had any issue, certainly not with personal safety and not even, like with having anything stolen or anything. It's just, I'm sure it can happen to you. But I literally had taxi drivers chase me because I gave them, 20 cents too much, and they were chasing me to like give me back the change. So I think if you try, you can get in trouble. You can probably get beat up. You can do, lose things. But I think you really have to go out of your way.
So it's livable as in terms of there's some stuff to do. There's a lot of stuff to do from what I understood from you in the past.
It's never ending. I've been there on and off for 5 years. I'm still discovering new neighborhoods and kind of new streets, and there's stuff opening all the time. So it's one of the cities that's just kind of, you kind of get bored of it.
What about the food? Is it mostly Asian, or can you get everything there?
Well, there is everything really. It's an international city. I would compare it to like New York or London, especially in the center. You'll have restaurants from all over the world. I think you can even get Polish food there, and,
Pierogi.
and yeah, you can get pierogi and on top of that, of course, you have like local foods. You have Chinese food, you have Thai food, you have Indian food. So really, kind of anything you want, you will find there.
So it's doable in very different kind of price levels. What about day game there?
I've pre-COVID, I've day gamed quite a bit there, and it works. You can definitely meet girls that way. I think kind of maybe you can refer back to our previous podcast.
And the one thing I want to bring up from that podcast is, so a lot of guys will think Thailand, Bangkok, ladyboys. You told on the previous podcast that it's not as common anymore.
Yeah, it's not as common. I mean, it's kind of, you'll meet them, but you'll kind of know very quickly, or they will tell you quickly. So it's not like, they're trying to trick you and to sleep with you. So it's like, yeah, it's there, but it's for me, it's not really an issue. I mean, I would watch out for it if you're like, drunk in a bar and you don't know what you're doing. You might have a surprise, but certainly not with Daygame. I think you'll be able to tell pretty quick.
Okay, so Thailand, Bangkok, very doable. What about other places in Thailand? Where would you go? So Thailand is a big city. Bangkok is a big city.
Yeah.
Let's take another place in Thailand that's more of a chilled out beach vibe. What would that place be?
Yeah, I would say there is Phuket is an island that used to have, huge reputation for like sex tourism and everything. But I think over time, over years, it just kind of became a cool place to live. And that's one of the transitions that took place during the COVID time, is that a lot of people moved out of Bangkok, especially a lot of young people. And they moved to Phuket and they just started living there. They decided to never come back because, it's a cool life. You're living there, you go to the beach every day, you go running, and there is tons of things to do. So it became like more of a fun place to be. One thing I would point out though, like in Bangkok, you don't need any kind of car or a scooter or anything. But in Phuket you do. You're kind of going to be a little bit confined to one area if you don't have a way of moving around. So you can either rent a car or you can rent a scooter and just drive around on that. That takes, obviously getting comfortable with driving in Asia, which is not that hard really. I think it's easier than driving in Europe, but just kind of have to get your...
How much would renting a car cost, a simple car?
Oh man, I think it's I can't really tell you from top of my head, but it's not too expensive. I think it's probably cheaper than in what you would pay in Europe.
Oh, of course.
I can't tell you off the top of my head.
Okay, it's fine. Okay, so what about day game in Phuket? Are there pockets where you can day game or?
Yeah, I would say maybe it's like day game with a twist, like a beach game, or there's like some plazas and kind of areas where people walk. You can probably day game there a bit. Probably you're better off doing like a little bit of a night game or something like that.
So normally we don't talk about online here, but this is Asia, so let's kind of mention that a little bit. Online in Bangkok and online in Phuket.
It's doable. I think it's the one thing about Asia is I found in Thailand, it's kind of there's girls that will date Western guys and there is girls that won't, and it's just kind of cultural differences. And the good thing about online is they kind of self-select themselves. If you do it during day game or night game, you just kind of have to do all the hard work. But online they will self-select themselves, and you can probably get a better quality than what you get in Western or Eastern Europe, right? So
wait, what do you mean?
Well, I think like
online.
Yeah, like
okay,
I think your value as a man is slightly higher there. It won't be you'll just meet girls, So it's doable. It's probably a lot of BS that you're gonna deal with like you do In Europe, there's gonna be flakes. There's gonna be just girls not coming out. There's gonna be some scams and all that. So if you're into it, then why not give it a try?
Anyone who's interested in more kind of in-depth conversation about Daygame in Asia can just go back and listen to the podcast about dating or Daygame in Asia. I don't remember what it's called, but just search Asia on my YouTube channel or my website, and you'll find the podcast episode. Or search Mr. Noodles or just Noodles, and you'll find it. Okay, we did Thailand. Let's do one in Latin America. Let's talk about the place I know the best right now. I would say is Argentina. So let's talk about Argentina. Livability, is there shit to do? Is it livable about... And this is going to be mostly, guys, this is going to be me rambling, basically. How livable it is, Buenos Aires is incredible. There's everything you need. There are great restaurants, there are great bars, there are things to do like art, tango, theater, if you're into all of that stuff. Like, I think Buenos Aires, I might be wrong about this, but I think Buenos Aires has most theaters, is the city with most theaters per capita in the world or something like that, ahead of New York and London, but I might be wrong about this. So when it comes to living your life and doing shit, there is stuff to do. There are different neighborhoods that you can go check out. Yeah, there are, again, all of these restaurants and bars. And these restaurants and bars, the thing about Buenos Aires is there are a lot of very reasonably priced places. You can go to a very nice bar with very nice cocktails and pay like $4 or $5 a drink, $3 to $5 a drink. Of course, if you want to find places that are catering for the very rich Argentines, like people in politics and shady businesses, there are places like that where you're gonna spend like Western money to go to a bar, and there are restaurants. Well, I don't think there are many restaurants where you're gonna spend like New York money for a meal, but there are places where you're gonna spend. Like you can go for a steak and you're gonna spend what we spent in that restaurant. You're gonna spend like $60 a person easily there. But if it's a very fancy place, but other than that, there are restaurants, there are bars. Everything is reasonably priced. You just have to. The thing with Argentina, with Buenos Aires, is you have to find out the places to go to, because I would say 90% of the restaurants that I went to were complete trash. And then I just realized that I just have to talk to the local people to find out where the best places are. And the places they showed me were incredible. So as bad as the bad places were, that's how good the good places were. When we're talking about livability price-wise, the one thing you have to know about Argentina is just Google about blue rate dollar or blue dollar or Argentina to exchange rates. Because there are two currency exchange rates in Argentina. Let's say if you have the official government set one, which is what you would be paying when you pay with a card or you buy something online with a card. And that would be, this is very, very roughly, it's actually a bit different, but let's say you get 100 pesos for $1 US. Actually you get more, but whatever. For simplicity, this was what, 6 months ago it was 100 pesos for $1 US. Well, now you are, that's official rate. But then if you have cash and you exchange it on some small exchange places on a street, or you can also send yourself money via Western Union, and you're going to get the unofficial, kind of like the black market exchange rate, or it's called blue rate. That's what you can Google online. And if $1 was 100 pesos in the official exchange rate, then blue rate would be, for $1 you would get 200 pesos. You would get twice as much money for your US dollars. So it's really important to know this. And if you will be looking into Argentina, then this is one of the first things you will find. And then if you look at the prices and you kind of use blue rate to calculate how much you're paying, then you will see that Argentina is very livable. Finding a decent Airbnb is going to be the hardest thing. If you're talking about Airbnbs, you will spend around 1K US dollars for a month for an Airbnb in a decent location. And what is a very big difference between Bangkok and places like Buenos Aires or in general Latin America? I asked Mr. Noodles that if I can get a place kind of further away from the city center for less and it would be safe. And he said that in Bangkok, you said that it's safe. Well, yeah. In Buenos Aires, it's not.
Yeah, that's different.
Like in Buenos Aires, you want to be in the safest areas. And if not, like you don't want to be 3 streets further away. You're going to think, oh, it's like it's like 2 blocks away from the safe part. It's gonna be fine. No, it's not. You gotta stay in the safe areas, and you have to know which are the safe areas. But again, if you're going to Buenos Aires, you can find all of this information online. There are areas like Palermo, there are areas like Santiago or Recoleta or Villa Crespo. Basically, you can go and find Facebook groups for expats in Buenos Aires or nomads in Buenos Aires. All of the information about that is there, but in those areas, you're just going to pay around 1K US for an Airbnb. That's a maybe studio, probably not a 1 bedroom. That's more, in most cases, that's going to be a studio in a decent location. That's kind of the hardest thing, is finding a decent place. If we're talking about day game, then I would say Argentina is very, very nice for day game. The downside is a lot of your day game is going to be in Spanish. So, for example, when guys are coming to Argentina to learn day game, I ask them, do you speak Spanish? And I highly suggest they speak some Spanish, because if you speak zero Spanish in Argentina, you won't even be able to explain your taxi driver where you need to go, because they will not understand any English. So, is day game doable in Argentina in English? I would say yes, but you would run into the same problem actually that we had in Kharkiv in Ukraine, that half of the people don't understand anything in English, and then you have a bunch of people, kind of like maybe like 30% speak some English, some simple English, and then 20% have decent English. So, and Buenos Aires would be sort of like that. If you are thinking about exploring other places in Argentina, there are other cities. You have to do a bit more homework before going there, mostly about safety. Because I spent time in one more city in Argentina, and I did not feel safe going out there after dark at all. I was not, like, you can't use your phone on a street middle of the day. You have to walk in the store, pull out your phone, check the Google Maps where you have to go, put it back in your pocket, and then you can go out again on the street. So Latin America is very different in this way, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to talk only about places that we have experience with, recent experience in, because Latin America wasn't as dangerous before COVID, and now, well, it still was dangerous, but not as much as it is now. So now, because of COVID, people are struggling more, they have less money, and governments are still trying to fuck them, which is the common theme in Latin America. and that's one common theme I saw in all Latin American countries, governments trying to fuck them really hard all the time. So it used to be safer, but Buenos Aires is, I never had any problems. My tips would be, whatever you are not ready to lose, just don't take it with you when you leave apartment. So have a shitty Android phone, something, just buy a phone for like $100 and use that if you're scared about your iPhone. If you have a fancy watch, then that shouldn't come with you to Buenos Aires, although it can go with you to Bangkok, right?
Yeah, in Bangkok I wouldn't be worried about it, unless you get drunk and lose it in a bar, but
that's a different, or you're like, lose it on a bet.
but actually, I lost my Apple Watch in Bangkok on a crazy night out recently, and I got an email the next day. Some girl kind of pulled out my medical ID, Googled me, went on LinkedIn, and just emailed me, "Hey, I found your watch. Do you want it back?" And then she even paid for the kind of courier to ship it to me personally, and she didn't want any money from me. So
people are so nice.
Yeah, they are.
People are so nice. So if you are thinking about spending some time in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, I would want to say, to me, it feels like New York City, because there's always something to do, but it's chilled out. You don't get the hustle and bustle of New York City, or like people always running somewhere. And it's a great place to live, to chill out. I would suggest pick up a hobby if you go there, so you have more shit to do, and like you don't spend all your time in bars and restaurants. Girls are very beautiful. I actually ended up going to Argentina because a year before I was in Mexico, and I realized that most of the hottest chicks I stopped on the street were from Argentina. So I would say Daygame is really nice, but you will need some Spanish. Okay, that's, I think, is that all? Do you have questions about Argentina?
No,
okay,
it's pretty clear.
Let's talk about some other places that you know. Well, let's do next to Argentina.
Chile.
You have spent quite a bit of time there.
Yeah, probably over a year combined.
And you haven't only been to the capital, which is Santiago de Chile, but you traveled around, right?
All over, really, yeah.
Okay, well, let's start with shortly talking about Santiago de Chile.
It's a big city. It's half of the population of Chile lives in Santiago. I'd say overall Chile is safer than Argentina and Santiago is safer than Buenos Aires. However, it's not nearly as safe as Bangkok or most of the places in Asia. There's crime, there's bad neighborhoods where you don't want to be even during the daytime. There's neighborhoods that police won't go into. And there's good neighborhoods where it almost seems like Europe. But even in those neighborhoods, maybe you won't get robbed, but you can get ripped off by a taxi driver. You can get, I don't know, you can get your cell phone stolen. So it's almost worse because it looks like Europe, it feels like Europe, your guard goes down, and that's when they kind of get you. So your radar should be up.
But it does sound like any city in Western Europe. Like people will snatch your phone from your hands in London. You can get scammed by taxi drivers. That's in, I think, any city in Europe. If you get in a taxi at the airport, like you're gonna get scammed.
No, not in Warsaw. I think you're not gonna get scammed at a taxi at the airport here. I have not heard of anybody getting their cell phone snatched.
But no, we're talking about Western Europe, like London, Paris.
Yeah, London, Paris, absolutely. Maybe just slightly more because you're gonna stick out a little bit more in those places.
So if we're talking Chile. I understand Chile is more expensive than Buenos Aires.
Yeah, it's actually can be, especially big city Santiago can be more comparable to Western Europe sometimes. Then some things are cheaper, you can definitely find cheaper foods and all that, but sometimes it can be more comparable to like Germany or something than Colombia.
I'm very interested in one thing about Chile. How are the girls there?
Girls are, historically there was a joke, how do you call a good-looking woman in Santiago? And the answer is la turista, right? It's a tourist. I think it's a little bit exaggerated. There is some good-looking Chileans, but recently, they experienced a lot of immigration from Venezuela, from Colombia, and these are, good-looking girls living in Santiago mostly.
So would you say that the better looking girls are going to be immigrants from Venezuela and Colombia?
Yeah, that's some of them. And there will also be like local Chilean girls that, if you like that kind of Italian, South European look, you will see a lot of girls like that.
So like Argentines?
Yeah, like Argentines.
But they're hot?
They're hot, yeah. I mean, I think they're hot. You would probably see more of them in the kind of higher end areas or the better neighborhoods. But yeah, you will see them. And I think Santiago is actually quite underrated for Daygame. If you speak some Spanish, you will see in the business district quite a few attractive girls. And especially these days, like I mentioned, with all the kind of influx of Venezuelans and Colombians, it's a good place. And you're definitely having more than enough traffic.
So let me ask, there are areas in Santiago. There is the kind of the rich developed area. What was it called?
Yeah, it's Las Condes. It's kind of the the business district, kind of fancy area of Santiago. As you will see all the kind of Starbucks there and nice restaurants and everything, and it feels like Western Europe. Really, it's clean. Then you can go more downtown. There's their Plaza del Armas, which is kind of the true downtown. It's a little bit more dodgy. You probably want to be a little bit more careful there, but I went there numerous times and nothing happened.
So what's a neighborhood that's not that crazy expensive, fancy neighborhood? What is a neighborhood that's more kind of down to earth, more local, and where you're probably going to meet more of those Venezuelans and Colombians?
Santiago is the center itself, but everything is quite close. It can hop on a subway and always, it's 2 stops away. So it's not that far. You'll see those Venezuelans, Colombians, they probably work in the fancy part somewhere for a bank or something. So you'll meet them there as well. But then everything in between, it's not like Buenos Aires that you cannot step outside. You just kind of see it progressively gets maybe less and less fancy, but it's still walkable, livable, and that works. Well, maybe one thing to keep in mind, it's South in South America in general, it's the whenever there's any political issue or whatever, these guys love to take to the street. So you might see in a proper downtown sometimes if there might be some sort of protests and that sort of stuff. So maybe that's time to avoid it.
I understand that, for example, in Buenos Aires, it's like if there are protests, you don't want to be out on the street. It's dangerous.
I would say so because they have clashes with police and all that. So I probably avoid it on these days. And Chile had its wave of protests. I think a year or two ago, but now it's kind of seems it's calmed down quite a bit.
Okay, so if we just bring it down to like names of the neighborhoods, one place I can stay at is the fancy place. What was it called?
Yeah, Las Condes.
Las Condes.
Las Condes, and I would look for something around there, maybe close to the subway station.
Okay.
Trying to think of the names of. You look at Plaza del Armas. It's kind of more anything between Las Condes and Plaza del Armas. I would say, when you get closer to Plaza del Armas, it's gonna get a little bit dodgier and stuff. But there's still...
dodgy. Like how dodgy are we talking? Are we talking like Medellin dodgy or like Buenos Aires dodgy?
It's just, you're gonna see like graffitis on the street and like.
Oh my God, vandalism!
You walk into the laundry shop and the guy there keeps a big baseball bat. I don't know why, but probably not for playing baseball. So just you might see some fight every now and then, but it's
that
not.
sounds reasonable.
Yeah,
as long as I'm safe.
I didn't feel unsafe there. I probably, I probably wouldn't flash my cash on the street, but just kind of...
Both of those neighborhoods are Daygameable.
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say they're both Daygameable.
Okay.
If you speak some Spanish, because in Chile and Santiago, you definitely need some Spanish, like Argentina. And I find even if you speak a little bit of Spanish, even if you speak kind of very basic conversation, that will often put the girl at ease. And then she will even start speaking some English to you.
Because they don't speak Spanish in Chile.
Because their Spanish, by the way, is some very weird version of Spanish that nobody understands, including other South Americans. But my advice would be, if you don't speak Spanish, it's still a cool place to go. But first day, enroll in a school of Spanish, and it's a cool experience actually, because you meet people and you kind of spend some time at school, and then you can learn even in a month you can learn some basic Spanish that's gonna give you some basic conversation.
Okay. Other cities worth checking out in Chile. Let's not go deep into that. Just kind of mention a few cities on what they are known for. Maybe let's do that.
So other cities, that's my one advice is, like, if you go to Chile and you stay in Santiago, go outside, because it will be a shame if you go to Chile just for Santiago. It's a cool city. It's very livable, but I mean, Chile has so much more to offer. And I would, depending on the time of the year to go, but one of my favorite cities down there is Pucón. It's kind of in northern Patagonia, and they call it the Lake Region, Región de Lagos, and it's kind of a place where the richer Chileans go for the summer. It's kind of like, I would describe it as Switzerland, but with volcanoes.
It's like Bariloche, sort of?
It's kind of like Bariloche, and you have like lots of... But it's a very nice little city you can stay in, and you can go on
trips. How do you spell that?
It's called Pucón. Pucon. C-O with an accent N. Yeah, Pucón.
Okay. What else? Something in the north?
Valdivia is another city. It's not in the north. It's more on the ocean. It's kind of a cool place. Lots of universities there, so lots of like kind of nightlife and stuff like that. That is interesting. If you go to the north, I don't know north that well, other than some kind of trip deserts. But I think we spoke about like Iquique, and there's another city I'm forgetting up north that's it's a different climate. It's a little bit warmer, more of a desert climate, but there are cities there that you can go and live and surf as well.
So basically, I think that the beautiful thing about Argentina and Chile, about both of them, the nice thing is they're very long cities, so you can go all the way from deserts to icebergs and penguins. And yeah, by the way, both in Argentina and in Chile, you can see penguins and sea lions and whatnot, like whales, I think, in some places at the right times of the year, or am I wrong?
I think so. No, yeah, you definitely can see, if you're towards Patagonia, you can see whales in Chile.
Yeah, what would you say are the best months to go to Chile?
I go in the day or summer, so I would like November, really like September through April, but the best months would be kind of like November, December through February, March. Yeah, that's kind of the best. Their summer is January, February, right? So February, Santiago is gonna be emptier, like August in Europe. Just keep that in mind. And places like Pucón that I mentioned, that's gonna be really packed. So probably higher prices and all that.
Okay, let's hop back to Asia. What else do we have in Asia? We have Bali, of course.
Bali's a cool
Let's
place.
talk about Bali in Indonesia,
Yeah.
and then maybe let's touch kind of. Oh, we talked quite a bit about Singapore, I think, in the previous podcast, so we can skip that. But let's do Bali, and then let's talk about Colombia and Mexico.
Okay.
But let's do Bali. Let's start with that.
Bali's it's a cool place. It's been really quiet during COVID, and I hear it's kind of opening up right now. It's a very international place, so it's you kind of have everything there. You have restaurants, you have bars, probably pretty easy to easy place to go even if you have little travel experience. Big for surfing, big for kind of yoga retreats and all that. Again, you're probably, if you don't have a scooter or a car, you're gonna be kind of confined into one area. But big party place, lots of parties, lots of kind of, I don't know how you day game there really, unless you're on a beach or something.
Yeah,
there isn't many pedestrian areas. But it's a great place to spend the winter, especially if you like surfing or something like that.
So it's a great place for chilling on a beach, living that surfing or yoga lifestyle. But you're not going to be day gaming there. You're going to be doing like the surf boy thing, or
yeah, you can do like if you're into surfing. It's you can even stay. They have those surf camps where they organize the trips for you, where you can pretty much live there for months at a time and it's kind of a fun place. You'll meet people, but you're not really doing proper day game because they just it might be a little bit too hot to walk. They don't really have nice malls where you can go. So you're gonna be doing like beach game or bar game or that sort of or surf camp game or whatever you call it, right?
By the way, driving in Thailand and in Indonesia with a US or EU driver's license, is it legal? Because I've heard about Indonesia that it's not really legal, that you need an international permit or something.
I know plenty of people. I've definitely driven there with a US driver's license, but might have changed. It's like might be illegal in the sense they want you like pay them a bribe, so you'll need to pay like $20.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
In Thailand, I have actually have a Thai driver's license, so I'm not really worried about it. But I never had any issues. But probably worth checking. You can always get the international driver's permit. It costs like I don't know, $20, and then you get your permit. You just kind of you can do it online. They'll send you your permit. So that might be a way around it.
Okay. Safety in Bali.
It's safe. I mean, the biggest kind of danger is you're gonna hurt yourself on a motorbike, or a scooter. It's quite easy to do, especially if you get a little bit overconfident. Bali, like whereas Thailand has great medical care, I think Bali doesn't really have a proper hospital, so like be careful there because if you really get hurt, they might need to evacuate you to a different country.
So you would need like a really, really, really good travel insurance that would cover those whatever is that called? That thing is called where they take you to a hospital.
Yeah, repatriation or whatever. Yeah,
that's when you die, I think.
Yeah,
I'm like when I die, just leave me there. You're good.
Just bury me where I died.
So there's no day game. There's beautiful beaches. There's surfing. What about bars, restaurants, things like that?
Oh, they're awesome. I mean, there's great bars, there's great restaurants, there's beach parties and all that.
Okay.
And
Oh, they legalized weed in Thailand, right? Not that we partake in any illegal, illicit
no,
activities.
we would have
would
never
do
done
that.
it, right? But I heard, my friend told me that in Thailand it's legal, but it's kind of the rules are unclear, but it's legal enough that there's cannabis shops everywhere. They're very nice. You walk in, they can advise you which kind of weed you want. They will roll it up for you. You can light it up there or on the street. There's even like in front of clubs, they have those food trucks, but cannabis trucks. You can just go there. They'll do it for you. There's edibles. You used to be able to get them delivered online, but I think now they just kind of stopped doing that. But it might come up again. They're talking about legalizing mushrooms there. So, if you're into that stuff, I think it might become a very interesting.
You degenerates listening to this polite podcast where we do not partake in any bad activities that are condemned by societal norms. What about Indonesia and Bali? Because there for trafficking they kill you, I think.
Yeah, in Indonesia, last time I checked, I'd be careful about it. Again, you can, if it's small amount, I heard you could probably get out of trouble easily with a small donation to the police department, but I would be careful because it's I think in Indonesia it's actually it's a much more religious country and they quite strict about it. So
oh wait, they have problems like with alcohol, with buying alcohol there?
No, buying alcohol is not in Bali. I think there's some days where they might not sell it, some holidays, but not really. But yeah, I haven't been in Bali in a few years, but I would be careful, at least check before you partake in those activities.
If we touch on this topic, then I'm going to comment on Argentina. When I went on dates in Argentina, I was talking about smoking weed with chicks in Argentina, and all of them would say, "Oh yeah, I love smoking weed," and then I would say, "Oh yeah, but I haven't found any yet." And like, I think all except one just said, "Oh, I have some. We can smoke some." Like they would just walk around with it, and it's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, like let's go to my place for all a joint," and they're like, oh, "Let's go." That's if we're kind of talking about topics like that, but we're not gonna go harder than weed for different reasons, because these parts of the world, even if you like other things, these are not the places where you want to experiment with anything, especially Argentina. The same, I think, goes for Southeast Asia, because the quality that gets there is just Argentina as well. It's not a place known for quality. It's really, really terrible. The things that happen there with drugs and okay, let's get back to more traditional topics. Chicks, day game, same delays, orgies. We have talked about the places I wanted to talk about in Latin America. Oh, in Asia, so Thailand and Bali, those are the places I was interested in. Of course, there are other places around. There's Vietnam, there is Singapore, which we covered in the previous podcast. There's Hong Kong that we talked about on the previous one as well. Guys, go get your Taiwanese flag. Well, Taiwan still exists, Anyways, let's talk about Colombia. Colombia is a very, very, very popular destination for nomads. Everyone is going to Colombia. People go to, mostly everyone goes to Medellin. Where else do people go? You know a lot of people who live this lifestyle as well.
Yeah, Medellin is kind of the destination. Cali used to be another, maybe kind of more of the beaten path type of Medellin, and it was a cool place, a little bit more unwesternized, I'd say, but it was fun.
So the good thing about Medellin is what I saw there is you can day game in English. You can get by, like a lot of girls will not speak any English, but you will find enough who do, especially if you go to kind of the most popular day game areas, like you go to Santa Fe Mall or Poblado. Mm-hmm. By the way, guys, I've I've done a video, like Medellin Daygame guide. If you are interested in going there, then I've done a guide with all the locations and how receptive the girls are there, and everything. Actually, I interviewed a student I coached there, who got coaching from me because you told him like, hey, Robert is going to Latin to Medellin, you gotta work with him. And he just got in touch with me. He's like, hey, like Mr. Noodles told me I gotta work with you. I have no questions. Like, when? and we did a video with him talking about different areas and showing different areas of Medellin. Have you been to Medellin?
I've been to Medellin, yeah, but not after COVID.
So how was it before COVID? Did you feel safe there?
I felt safe enough. I know I've heard stories, and so I kind of had my guards up. But when I was in Poblado, and I forgot there's other kind of other popular areas where I went.
Yeah, Laureles,
yeah, and I felt safe enough. I never had any kind of issues there.
Okay.
But again, like kind of standard kind of caution applies. I wasn't wearing a fancy watch. I was kind of trying to blend in as much as I could and not stick out too much.
Because I've heard very good things about Medellin, but then I went online and I started reading like the expats Facebook group, and there were so many stories of people getting robbed and stabbed and things being stolen, and it seemed it has gotten crazier. And I talked to people who have been there, and I looked at what's happening online, and I met some girls who were Colombians, and what I understand is it used to be much safer, and it just got worse because of COVID, because people weren't making as much money, and they were really struggling because of COVID. So I think the part of, the danger level has increased. So I did not spend a lot of time outside after dark, especially because the students' place where I was staying was kind of a 15-minute walk from the kind of the party streets. So I did not kind of feel that well spending time there. And when I was coaching, when I was in Poblado, I did not feel safe taking my phone out, taking notes about the set. So I had to remember everything that happens in a set in my head, and then kind of without using my phone. So I was kind of careful about having my phone out. That being said, the Santa Fe Mall and areas around it felt very safe. Laureles, again, during the day seemed very okay, and so did Poblado in most places, but I realized I have to be careful, but like always pay attention to surroundings, no fancy watches, keep your fancy phone in your pocket or get a shitty phone. Right now, I felt you have to pay way more attention. And then to everything, a lot of restaurants, a lot of bars, you can find very reasonably priced places there. You can find also places that are like a bit more tourist priced, but we went to a golf club and we had a lunch at a golf club for like $10, which was very reasonable. So again, I'm not a big fan of Colombian food. So I was not a big fan of that, and but they have this culture of beers outside on the street, just next to a bar. You're sitting outdoor seating, and you're drinking your beers, having your fun. So there's a lot of that. Have you been to other places in Colombia?
Yeah, Cali. It's again, I don't know what the safety is there now, but it was a cool place. It's more kind of known for salsa and all that stuff. So a little bit more kind of centered around that, but very cool place. You're probably a little bit more shiny as a foreigner, and there's neighborhoods where you don't want to go. But it's at least worth looking into. Might be a cool place to go. I think it's the third largest city in Colombia.
Could be.
Bogota too, of course.
Yeah, Bogota. I wanted to talk next about Bogota, and we're going to talk about girls separately, like to compare Bogota and Medellin, because types of girls you will see in Bogota are very different from girls in Medellin. So in Medellin, you have that kind of like narco princess.
Yeah.
Fake everything, dolled up, kind of the type of Colombian when she walks down the street, oh, this chick's from Colombia or Brazil, or like booty and everything, like fake booty, of course. So there's a lot of that in Medellin, whereas when you go to Bogota was like classy, tiny petite girls, very completely different type. Like no fake booties, no fake tits, no huge tits and booties. Just very down to earth, petite, kind of under the radar. Very cute. I prefer the Bogota girls, but I know other guys really, really like girls in Medellin. I did not like them. When we're talking about Bogota is expensive. Like getting an Airbnb in a decent location in Bogota is gonna be really expensive for whatever reason. Same as Mexico City. I guess that's because the capital and everyone wants to live there. But yeah, Airbnbs were very expensive, like crazy. And again, just as with Buenos Aires, even more in Colombia. You don't want to stay 3 streets away from the main street. Yeah, you don't want to risk walking those 3 blocks, because I was in a small city in Colombia. I was in Pereira, and I was living 2 blocks from this main street with all the restaurants and bars and everything. And I went two blocks from the main streets, and then I went 2 blocks the other way, and I saw like empty heroin baggies on the streets. So, and turns out locals told me that that's the only area in town where they sell heroin. Yeah. That's 4 blocks from the main Daygame street where you'd be daygaming. So, wow. And and in Bogota, after dark, I was only taking taxis. I was not walking around, and not even taxis. I was ordering them online. I wouldn't get in one from the street. So, but I've heard there are other neighborhoods in Bogota, because everyone goes to this one neighborhood, the Zona T.
Yeah.
But I've heard there are other neighborhoods that are not as touristic, that have, because that's where real youngsters go to party. Yeah. Like kind of kids, like 16-year-olds go to party to clubs there. But I've heard there are other neighborhoods that are way more quiet, way more chilled out, much safer, because all the attention, crime with tourists is kind of focused in Zona T. So, but when we're talking again about Bogota, a lot of good restaurants, a lot of very nice bars, reasonably priced, not as cheap as Buenos Aires. They would be more kind of a bit more expensive, but still you can kind of pick what you like when it comes to prices. In terms of day game, I liked Bogota better. And an interesting thing about Bogota is I coached a student there, a student who had very, very strong AA. One of the kind of, out of all the guys I've coached, he was one of the guys with the strongest AA. But he spoke some Spanish, not perfect, but some Spanish. American guy. Actually, yeah, I did videos about him with Bogota Day Game Guide or something like that, something about Bogota, and we did a few videos about him day gaming there. And this guy, even with his crazy AA, at the end got 5 day game lays in Bogota.
Wow,
incredible! He did incredibly well there. It was crazy. So I for day game in Colombia, I really prefer Bogota, but yeah. Bogota is kind of cold. It's always kind of a bit coldish, like spring. It's really high altitude. You have to get used to being high in the mountains, so you're walking on the street and losing your breath. But Medellin, both of those places fairly dangerous. After COVID, I honestly would not go to either of them. Out of all the places where I wanted to go this kind of off season, Colombia was not on my list. But that being said, if you go to Colombia, there is a lovely place called Minca. I'm not going to try to spell it, words in English, but Minca. It's a beautiful, tiny village in the mountains where you can walk around at night with a camera and it's safe, and it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. So Google that, and okay, I think that's it about Colombia. Livable, not a lot of stuff to do, at least in my eyes, apart from bars and restaurants and day game, like partying. Price level higher than Buenos Aires, I think higher than what you can do in Asia. Types of chicks depends on what you like. We covered that. Okay, the last place to talk about, Mexico. Have you been to Mexico?
I've been to Mexico, yeah. Mexico City and all the kind of the tourist resorts.
When was the last time you went there?
Oh, it was a while ago, probably 5 years ago or so.
Okay. So last year I spent 2 weeks in Mexico City. I was vlogging about it. That's where I filmed my first vlog, actually. So we can mention, I can mention and slightly talk shortly about Mexico City, and then let's talk about the most popular tourist destination in this Cancun area, and specifically Playa del Carmen, and maybe mention a little bit of Tulum. So when it comes to Mexico City, when we're talking about day game, I did not see that many good-looking chicks in Mexico City, like nowhere near enough to that I could really do sets. There is this kind of high-end neighborhood called, I think it was Polanco.
Yeah.
That's considered better for day game, and it has more sets. But then again, hotel rooms there or Airbnbs there are gonna cost you $100 a night, which is ridiculous for Mexico City. For that money, you can go to Argentina and get a fucking, I don't know, like a penthouse apartment with your private pool or whatnot. You can get ridiculous things in Argentina for that money. So I really kind of don't see what's the fuss about Mexico City and why it's so expensive. So that's the only reason I wouldn't go there. For the price you have to pay to live there, and then if you're going to be going out in Polanco, you're going to be spending more for food unless you go to other areas, to restaurants. And I just don't think the kind of cost of living in Mexico City, like Airbnbs and hotels, I really don't think it's worth it. And then you can stay in neighborhoods like Roma or Condesa. I, again, was not a fan of those neighborhoods. I checked them out. They were kind of... I was not a big fan. And when we're talking about Mexico City, that place is dangerous. My friends who have been all over Latin America for extended periods of time, they said, whenever I asked about some city and safety there, they just said, oh, if you survived Mexico City and you felt safe there, then you can go anywhere else. Like, nothing is as dangerous as Mexico City. But if you do go to Mexico City, actually this applies to most places in Latin America. If you're walking on a street in like a busy part of city and you see a street that's empty, there are no people on the street, even during the day, when other streets are busy, it basically means you shouldn't walk on that street. There is a reason why that street is empty, why even locals aren't walking the street. So just maybe that's a simple rule to follow, and you should be doing okay. So Mexico City, absolute no-go for me, just because it's not worth the money and the safety. But everyone likes to talk about Playa del Carmen, where I went there a few years back. I spent several months there. Have you been there? You've been to Cancun and...
Why? I've been to Playa a while ago. It's probably like 10 years ago.
Were you daygaming back then?
No.
Were you online dating back then, or was it even the time when online?
Yeah.
No. Tinder was not.
Maybe not Tinder. I was pretty clueless back then, so I probably couldn't comment on that. I was probably trying to hit on some of my friends.
Well, what did you like in that part of Mexico? Because there are a lot of things to like there.
It's kind of like, it's very westernized, right? So it's, and I would imagine even more so now, right? So you have the same places you have in the US, maybe a little bit more of a flair to them, maybe a little bit more international. I know it's really popular with Americans now, as many of my friends from the US have moved there, kind of more lax COVID regulations and maybe, slightly cheaper, but to me, it seems like it's almost like being in the US a little bit, right? In terms of the social life and everything.
So you have a lot of bars, you have a lot of restaurants, all kinds of price levels, especially if you're talking about Playa del Carmen. Like Cancun is a bit more kind of hotel-oriented and Playa. Like, I love the beaches there and the nature and the jungle. And it's basically, all those places are like, it used to be a jungle and then they made cities and that's how that happened. And so nature there is really nice. You can just go to the beach and the beaches are really, really nice, especially in Cancun and in Tulum, maybe less in Playa del Carmen. And you have like palm trees everywhere and fresh avocados, like really, really good, and mangoes that you can peel with your hands. And it's incredible. So that part of it is great. I think Playa del Carmen, when it comes to day game, I think if you have not traveled a lot for day game, I think then Playa del Carmen is a must-see place, just because it's full with tourists and it's just people are there to have fun, and because of that, again, same rules, safety rules apply. You want to stay in the busier areas, kind of stay within kind of reason. Like don't stay in a place just because it's cheaper, because it's like maybe on the other side of the highway. Don't do that. I think day game there is great if you go at the right time of the year when the tourists are there. Price level, very nice. Bars, restaurants. I mean, one of my favorite foods in the world is tacos. I just love tacos.
Oh, they have good tacos in Mexico.
The thing with that part of the world, again, it used to be super popular, especially Tulum became incredibly popular. The year I went there is when all the influencers went there. And now, because of that, it attracted more drugs. I saw an article online about Tulum having problems with ocean because there are so many drugs being washed into ocean from like through the sewage system. And with drugs come drug dealers, and maybe before it was controlled by one gang, and now it's multiple kind of groups fighting for the turf. So there have been some kind of active fighting on the streets. A friend of mine spent some time last Europe winter in Playa del Carmen, I think, or was in Tulum. No, I think that was in Tulum. And he just told the guy, hey, could you go to the store across the street, like bring me some ciggies? And he gives him money, and they're on a beach. He goes across the street, gets some cigarettes, comes back completely pale. And it's like, oh, what happened? And the guy says, listen, I go into the store, I get cigarettes, I walk out, and there's this guy standing next to the store, just like, well, of course, the drug dealer. And he says, another guy pulls out a gun, shoots the guy in the head in front of me on the middle of the street, leaves. And things like that don't happen often, but they've started happening in that part of Mexico just because of how popular those places have become, how many tourists go there, and maybe you won't read about it on many news sites, but if you do some digging, then those places have become kind of sketchier. But I don't think it's a reason not to go there. I still think Playa del Carmen is just a great place to get away from everything, and Daygame on a beach vibe, because there is the Fifth Avenue where you can Daygame like 2 blocks from the beach. People who are there to have fun, and it's I say if you can't get laid in Playa del Carmen, then you're not gonna get laid anywhere. I know guys that are struggling other places. They go to Playa del Carmen and they're getting laid. So let me ask you. We've talked about several places. If you only speak English, what's one place where you would go for 3 months? You only speak English, and you want a day game as well. Livable city. You'll Daygame there, but only English.
Well, you'll survive in Bangkok, for sure. Some other places. It was Singapore, we mentioned before, that's very doable in English. Dubai, that's... you'll be fine there. And definitely not anywhere in... well, maybe except for Playa del Carmen. Nowhere in Latin America.
Okay, what if you spoke Spanish?
Yeah,
I speak a bit of Spanish, so where would you go for 3 months?
I'd go to Chile. I think that's very kind of under the radar place.
Okay, if I only spoke English and didn't speak any other languages, and I had to go somewhere for 3 months, and I hadn't been there before, I would do Playa del Carmen, Mexico. Yeah. That place was really cool with amazing nature and things very close by, so definitely worth a visit. And since I speak Spanish, and I am going somewhere for 3 months. Well, I'm going to Argentina. I'm going back to Buenos Aires, but I'm thinking about visiting Chile as well this summer. So, their summer, our winter. Okay, well, Mr. Noodles, thank you for sharing your experiences about Asia, about how you think, what your thoughts are about how livable and dateable those cities are. Well, guys, if you have any more questions you want to ask about those places, then I am in our group chat. I think Mr. Noodles he's in our group chat.
Yeah. Really sure. Maybe I wasn't active lately.
Join our group chat. Link to join it is in the description. You can ask all the questions you have there. And guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for, no, you didn't watch it. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next podcast episode. Ciao, guys.
Cheers.